the early 17th century. Imagine the rugged coastline of Maine, a place where the land meets the sea in a dramatic embrace. Towering pines meet the rocky shore, creating a landscape that is both beautiful and formidable. Waves crash against the cliffs with relentless force, a testament to the power of nature. This is a land of raw beauty, untouched and untamed by human hands. It is a land of untamed wilderness where the natural world reigns supreme. It was here, in 1607, that a group of English settlers dared to make their home, braving the unknown. They called their settlement Popham Colony, named after Sir John Popham, a key supporter of their venture. It was a bold endeavor, filled with hope and ambition. They were determined to carve out a new life for themselves in this challenging new world, despite the many obstacles they faced. The Popham Colony was short-lived, a fleeting chapter in the history of American colonization. It lasted only a little over a year, a brief moment in time. But its story is a testament to the human spirit, to the courage and determination of those early settlers. It is a reminder of the challenges and triumphs of early American colonization, a period marked by both hardship and hope. The colony's story is a reminder of the complex relationship between the English settlers and the native people, a relationship that was often fraught with tension. The colony was located at the mouth of the Kennebec River, a strategic location that provided access to the interior. This strategic location provided access to the interior, allowing the settlers to explore and trade. It offered protection from the harsh Atlantic, a crucial factor for their survival. The settlers built a fort. They built homes, creating a small but determined community. They established a small community, a beacon of hope in the wilderness. They hoped to find wealth, to discover resources that would make their venture profitable. They hoped to spread Christianity, to bring their faith to the New World. The Popham colonists faced many challenges. The climate was harsh and the land was unforgiving. The winters were long and cold, testing their endurance and resolve. The settlers were ill-prepared for the demands of life in the wilderness. Lacking the necessary skills and resources, they struggled to find food, to hunt and gather enough to sustain themselves. They struggled to build shelter. They struggled to survive, each day a battle against the elements and the unknown. The establishment of Popham Colony was part of a larger historical context, a time when the world was on the brink of monumental change. Europe was in the midst of the Age of Exploration, a period marked by daring voyages and the relentless pursuit of new horizons. Nations were competing for wealth and power. They sought new lands to expand their empires and increase their influence. They sought new trade routes to access exotic goods and resources, which would bring immense wealth to their homelands. England, eager to establish a presence in the New World, saw colonization as a means to challenge the dominance of Spain and France, who had already claimed vast territories. The Virginia Company of Plymouth, a group of English investors, was granted a charter by King James I to establish colonies in North America, a bold move that would shape the future of the continent. The charter divided the eastern coast of North America between two groups, each with its own ambitions and plans for the new land. The Plymouth Company received the northern portion, an area rich with potential but fraught with challenges. The London Company received the southern portion. The charter was significant as it laid the groundwork for future settlements and the eventual shaping of the United States. It reflected England's ambition to establish a permanent presence in the New World, a goal driven by both economic and strategic interests. It set the stage for a century of colonization and conflict, as European powers vied for control over the rich and diverse lands of North America. The Plymouth Company wasted no time in exercising its charter, eager to capitalize on the opportunities that lay across the Atlantic. They financed an expedition to establish a colony in the northern region, a venture that required significant resources and unwavering determination. This expedition was led by George Popham, a seasoned explorer with a vision for a new settlement. The expedition also included Raleigh Gilbert, a relative of Sir Walter Raleigh, bringing with him experience and a sense of adventure. The colonists set sail from Plymouth, England in 1607. Embarking on a journey filled with hope and uncertainty. They carried with them the hopes and dreams of a nation envisioning a prosperous future in a land of opportunity. The motives behind the colony's founding were multifaceted, encompassing economic, religious, and political aspirations. Economic prosperity was a primary driver, as England sought to tap into the wealth of the New World. England saw the potential for exploiting natural resources, from timber to furs, which were highly valued in Europe. They sought new markets for trade, hoping to establish profitable exchanges with both indigenous peoples and other European settlers. Religious freedom was another motivating factor, as many sought a place where they could practice their faith without persecution. Some colonists sought refuge from religious persecution in England, dreaming of a new society where they could worship freely. The desire for national glory and expansion also played a role, as England aimed to build an empire that would rival those of its European neighbours. England wanted to assert its power on the world stage, demonstrating its strength and ambition through successful colonization efforts. They wanted to compete with other European powers, each striving to carve out their own piece of the New World and secure their place in history. The journey across the Atlantic was perilous. The ships were small, often no more than 100 feet long. The seas were rough, with waves that could tower over the decks. The voyage was long and arduous, often taking several months to complete. The settlers endured cramped conditions with little room to move. They endured seasickness, which was a constant companion on the turbulent waters. They endured the constant fear of storms and disease. The threat of scurvy and other illnesses loomed large. The gift of God, the larger of the two ships, carried the majority of the colonists and supplies. It was their lifeline, holding everything they needed to start anew. The smaller pinnace, Mary and John, provided additional transport and served as a scout vessel. It was nimble and could navigate shallower waters. The ships were ill-suited for the rigors of the Atlantic crossing. They were built for coastal waters, not the open ocean. The colonists suffered greatly from the cramped conditions, inadequate provisions, and the constant threat of disease. Many fell ill, and some did not survive the journey. Despite the hardships, the settlers pressed on. Their determination was unwavering. They were driven by the hope of a better life. The promise of land and freedom kept their spirits high. They were sustained by their faith. Prayer meetings were held regularly, providing comfort and a sense of community. After months at sea, they finally sighted land. The sight of the coastline brought a wave of relief and joy. The sight of the New World filled them with a mix of trepidation and excitement. They knew challenges awaited, but so did opportunities. They had reached their destination. The long journey was over, but their adventure was just beginning. They were ready to begin their new lives. The first steps on the new land were filled with hope and determination. The first order of business was to find a suitable location for their settlement. They explored the coastline, looking for the perfect spot. They searched for a place that offered protection from the elements and potential threats. They searched for a place that offered access to resources such as fresh water, timber, and fertile land. They chose a site on a peninsula at the mouth of the Kennebec River. This strategic location provided natural defenses and access to the river. This location, they believed, would provide them with the best chance of survival. They were hopeful and ready to build their new community. Section 4. Establishing a foothold, Fort St. George. Upon landing, the settlers immediately set to work. They began the task of building their new home. They constructed a fort for protection. They called it Fort St. George. They built houses for shelter. They cleared land for farming. The construction of Fort St. George was a priority. It served as a symbol of English presence. It served as a reminder of the challenges they faced in this new land. Life in the colony was harsh. The settlers had to adapt to a new environment. They had to learn new skills. They had to contend with unfamiliar dangers. The work was labor-intensive. The days were long. The settlers faced constant reminders of the fragility of their existence. The settlers faced many challenges. The climate was different from what they were used to. The winters were long and cold. The summers were short and cool. The land was difficult to farm. The soil was rocky. The growing season was short. The settlers were often short of food. They had to rely on hunting and fishing. They had to rely on the generosity of the native people. Despite these hardships, the settlers persevered. They were determined to make their new home a success. Section 5. Encounters with the Abenaki. The arrival of the English settlers did not go unnoticed. The land they had chosen belonged to the Abenaki people. The Abenaki had lived in the region for centuries. The Abenaki were initially wary of the newcomers. They observed them from a distance, they assessed their intentions. The Abenaki were skilled hunters, they were skilled fishermen, they were skilled farmers. They had a deep understanding of the land, they had a deep respect for nature. The Abenaki way of life was in stark contrast to that of the English settlers. The English settlers viewed the land as something to be exploited. The Abenaki viewed the land as something to be respected. Despite their differences, the two groups eventually made contact. The first encounters between the English and the Abenaki were tense. The English were apprehensive of the natives. The natives were suspicious of the English. However, both sides recognized the need for diplomacy. They engaged in cautious trade. They exchanged goods and knowledge.
The relationship between the English and the Abenaki was complex and often fraught with misunderstanding. Language barriers hindered communication. Cultural differences led to misinterpretations. The English saw the Abenaki as primitive and uncivilized. The Abenaki saw the English as intrusive and disrespectful.
Section 6. Life in the New World. Daily life in Popham Colony was a struggle for survival. The settlers worked tirelessly to build a self-sufficient community. They cleared land for farming, they planted crops, they hunted and fished, they constructed dwellings, they built fortifications, they established trade relations with the Abenaki.
The settlers' diet consisted mainly of what they could hunt, fish, and gather, supplemented by the meager crops they were able to cultivate. Hunting provided deer, turkey, and other wild game. Fishing yielded cod, salmon, and other fish. The settlers also gathered berries, nuts, and roots.
The harsh conditions took a toll on the colonists. Disease was rampant. Food shortages were common. The colonists' spirits were tested by the unforgiving wilderness. They persevered, driven by the hope of a better future for themselves and their children. Despite the hardships, there were moments of camaraderie and shared purpose. The colonists relied on each other for support. They celebrated their successes, they mourned their losses.